Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan as the Eagles get ready to try to exercise a demon, so to speak, this weekend. Adam, as they go down to AT&T Stadium, the NFL's biggest circus, in my opinion, and try to beat the Dallas Cowboys in their home stadium, which I don't believe they've done since 2018 season. So that's been quite a while. And we know that Dallas will be starting Cooper Rush. And for me, Adam, I know that we've been judging the Eagles about on style points, and we will continue, especially when they play inferior opponents. But go to Dallas and get a win because right now you need to stack wins as they've been doing for the last few weeks.
It was actually 2017 was the last time they
That's
won
right,
that. Yeah.
2017. Yeah.
In that game,
Jay Ajayi, baby.
yeah. In fact, I remember a couple things about both games. Number one, the Eagles clubbed the Cowboys in 2017 there. Yeah. Okay, in AT&T Stadium, as you mentioned. But the second game was when the Eagles lost. That's when Frank Reich called the plays. I'm not sure why, but my understanding then was that he called the plays, and maybe it was just to give him a chance to call plays. And anyway, that was a disaster. They got shut out at home, 6-0. In fact, that game, that December 31st game, was like one of those where you go, "Oh boy, what?" The polls
Yep.
started. It was
Yep.
ugly.
Yep. I
It
remember
looked
that.
bad. Yeah, then Sudfeld came in and did well. It was a lot of checkdowns, but anyway,
Do you have the box score in front of you?
I do.
'Cause I recall, I don't know if they have this on what you're looking at, but I
Yeah.
recall it being about 5 degrees outside
Oh,
it was one of the coldest
all right.
regular season games I can ever remember. So I
I
don't know if
got it.
they have the,
I do.
okay.
Wow, you got a good memory, dude. Jeez, you're close. But let's put it this way: you were right. It was freezing. It was 19 degrees at kickoff.
It might have been the one of those 19 degrees, but feels like five
Yeah,
with the wind chill.
yeah,
It was,
you got
yeah, it
it.
was brutal.
7.2. Well, so the Celsius was 7.2, but I'm sure the wind chill was 3, as you just mentioned. So you're pretty close. And the wind, I do remember it being windy that day.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. A couple trivia questions before we move on.
Okay.
This is unbelievable who started at linebacker. Holy, there's no way you would get this. Okay.
Ellaby?
That's one.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
That
I
gave it
thought that
away.
was the tough one.
No, it was, but no. Okay. I'll give you another hint. This is even harder. If you get this one, I'm going to give you a hint if you can't get it.
Started at linebacker. All right, because so what I recall, this was a meaningless game in that they didn't have to win it for
Hmm.
any reasons because they had clinched. So they were probably starting backup linebackers in 2017. Not Camus,
No, but it's weird. They started some play like the starting offense was out there.
right? Because I
It,
think they were trying to get Foles accustomed to them.
yes, 100%. Yep.
Oh man,
This
boy.
one, this dude, okay, I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay,
His last name could be spelled one of two ways.
that's a hell of a hint.
Well, here's the hint. Well, I'm not going to give you the name. This guy was on and off the roster a number of years.
Man,
Najee Good.
no, that's right. Najee Good. Yes. Oh man, that wasn't as hard. I can't believe I forgot that, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
remember
have gotten it. And I got
Ellaby.
one more for you. Okay, now this
Okay.
is obvious. This one's obvious because the scourge of the fans. Fans hated this guy. I just gave it to you. You know this one. This is obvious. It's a
Well, it
layup.
could be. That could be a bunch of guys. I
Yeah,
mean,
but dude, this guy got more venom. It was so like not nice.
okay.
But
What's the trivia question though? He played in the game. He was a what? A corner, a safety, a
no,
mid.
no, linebacker.
Oh,
No, they
oh, another
started three
linebacker.
off the ball linebackers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fans hated this
Actually,
line.
weird formation. What the hell? They came out in a weird formation. I don't know why. Kendrick
Maybe
started, but the other
Mhm.
linebacker started. Fans generally hated this guy.
not
Anything
Casey
else?
Matthews. Wait, I don't
No,
know.
close. Though he was long gone, but Nate Gary.
Nate Gary. Wow, he started. They must. I wonder if Oakland came out in some weird
No,
or
Dallas. Yeah,
Las
Dallas.
yeah, Dallas came out in some weird like 13 personnel formation, which is
Oh,
possible. I mean, who
yeah. Well,
knows?
you nailed it. Yes. God damn, good call. Without even looking.
Well, I mean,
Witten.
you're telling me that three linebackers are on the field. You know.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Jeff Swaim, who's still playing. He's an old-fashioned wide tight end. That's why guy keeps getting jobs. Jason Witten, of course. Hannah. I don't remember 84 Hannah. I have no idea who that guy is.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
I
So
can't
I'm going
remember.
to guess also as we reflect on this Eagles
Yeah.
Cowboy series in 2017, that game that they beat Dallas in Dallas where they destroyed them.
Yep.
I don't know if you have the box score in front of me. I think that was a one possession game at halftime. And then Ajayi came out on the first drive of the second half and ripped off like a 56-yard touchdown. Maybe not that long, maybe like a 36-yard touchdown run. But he had, if I'm not mistaken,
74,
oh, it's that
7.
long? Wow.
Uh, it was, hang on, hang on. No, he didn't. No, he did not. He did not. In
I
that
wonder
game,
if he had a really long run that then
he
set
did.
up a
Long run. You
touchdown.
got it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
long run. He had a 71. Jay had a 71-yard run. Here, oh God, another one I never would have gotten.
Hmm.
Talk about another guy who was on and off the roster at running back over a number of years as a kickoff returner and like a third string running back.
Kenyon Barner.
You got it. Yep, yep,
Nice,
yep,
nice.
yep, yep.
So what
Corey
was the
Clement.
score at halftime in Dallas of that first game?
Oh, well, you mean of the game in Dallas that they won?
Yeah,
This is crazy. They won 37-9.
right.
The score was 9-7 at halftime. What the hell
That's
happened?
what I was. I remembered exactly. It was a very close game. Ajayi
Oh,
rips off this really long run. They convert it into a touchdown, and then the floodgates opened.
hmm.
It was just like one big play after another in the second half. That was
It,
a yeah.
Super
That was a
year.
heck of a season, man.
It's a Super Bowl year. I remember some of what you're talking about. It just is so what a bizarre game. The name I just love when we reminisce of the names. It's just kind of funny because sometimes you're like, wow, that guy was on that team. Wow, okay.
Right, right.
Uh,
So the last game of the year, by the way, was the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, right after the Cowboys, or was it Raiders Cowboys or Cowboys Raiders?
you got it. It was Raiders Cowboys first, and
All
that
right.
was
If you
another
check the
bad game.
temperature of that Raiders game, it was pretty cold that day too. It was one of the. It was like back to
It
back,
was bad.
really
Yeah.
frigid games. That yeah.
All right.
Nowadays we look outside and
Well,
it's like maybe on New Year's Day it'll be like I don't know 60 degrees.
you know who started at left guard? Well, I didn't know this. Take a guess who started at left guard.
In
I'll even give his number.
2017,
No, in 17. Yeah, in this game against the Raiders. Number 67.
Chance Warmack.
You got it. Damn, how did you know without looking? Jeez, unbelievable. Good
Well,
call.
I remember he was actually the first guy they went to very briefly after they yanked Sayamalu out of the starting lineup after two
Yeah.
games, and then Chance didn't, and then all of a sudden it was Wisniewski from there on out, and then I'm sure they were resting Wisniewski in the finale there, so they went back to Warmack.
Well, one more for you. Here's a guy who I know he wound up playing for them at some point, but barely. This guy got a Super Bowl ring, the immortal Destiny Vallejo. I don't know how you
Destiny
know
by it was his
that.
destiny to get a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, he played that game. He actually played that game. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll move on. But we tested your knowledge of what you could recall.
Yeah,
For
it was
those of
pretty
you
good.
just yeah, no, not only you, but folks who are listening who were at that game, they remember how cold they were. Both games. Yeah, that game was a little bit warmer, but not much more than the Dallas game.
Yeah, no, that was, whew, I remember that was rough. So that was good. All right. So listen, even better is we had an awesome conversation with former Eagles president Joe Banner. We tend to have him on once a year with our Patreon folks. This one went a little longer. Joe gave us about 40 minutes, and there were a lot of really fascinating things that he said in that interview. So we're not gonna go through all. Become a Patreon member, check out the whole interview. But there are some things we're gonna talk about because they're important. Adam, what's of all the things he said, what jumped out to you the most that made you go, oh, huh, all right,
Well, the Zach Bond stuff you brought up was awesome.
yep,
Awesome. I know we put a clip out on social, but it was just not that. It was wide ranging. We talked about the Cowboys. We talked about the Commanders. We talked about his philosophy on analytics, but and why he supports or doesn't support how it's used. It's fascinating. We went in so many different. This one was different from most of the ones we've done with him. This we took it because we haven't had him on, and God, it's been over a year. He just had not been available, and I kept trying and trying for like 3 or 4 months, and he finally said, "Yeah, I got it. Can you do tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing it. Well, if we have to like put everything else aside, we're doing this." So he was great. We went in a variety of directions. I would I liked it all. It was interesting. His philosophy of linebackers, which we've talked about before, but again, we went in a different direction. You brought up Sirianni, his thoughts on Nick.
mm-hmm.
Um,
The Bond thing was really interesting. I thought for sure he was going to say,
Mhm.
"Yep, you're Zach Bond," because if you've followed you on Twitter, you always know he doesn't think players should sign early ever.
Yes. Yes.
when they can maximize their value. I mean, he's almost like the opposite of the guy that he had to be when he was president of the Eagles, and he's trying to get you 2 years into
Yep.
your rookie deal, right?
Yeah.
So I thought for sure when I said, "Hey, Zach Bowen's he only signed a 1 year deal. He's going to be a free agent. There's no way he should agree to any kind of extension that the Eagles might want to offer him right now because you're that close to free agency." And I said, and there's also no way the Eagles are going to pay market value. And he said that he thinks that there's a way for the two sides to really come together. Now he added some context as to why, and he didn't definitively say it's going to happen, but he just, for a guy who I thought was going to slam the door on any idea of a Zach Bowen extension, he did not, and I was surprised about that. Now, historical purposes, in 2017, I'm glad you brought up that season, Adam. The Eagles had two really prominent players on a 1 year deal. One was Alshon Jeffrey, the other was Tim Jernigan. And they signed, or when I say 1 year deal, Alshon was on a 1 year deal, and Tim was in the last year of his rookie deal. And they signed them both to extensions. One was November, that was Alshon. No, that was Jernigan, I think. And then Alshon in December.
Sure. It was Jernigan.
So, hey, guess what? It's November. And if the Eagles don't want if the Eagles are now convinced after 9 weeks that, hey, we have a functional linebacker here, and maybe he's playing a little over his, who knows? But there's room to grow. We can get him better. They may want to approach him about an extension and not let this thing get too much
Well,
closer to free agency.
here's the thing. So his former college teammate Van Ginkel
Hmm.
making 10 million a year. The Eagles weren't going there, so it was a non-starter. He was coming off a broken foot. So give the Vikings credit. He's been relatively healthy and he's having a great season. I mean, he's back with his former head coach with the Dolphins, Brian Flores. They're back together in Minnesota, and it's really working. And this is one of the all-time stories for the Eagles in free agency. I love like again, we covered so much ground with Banner. We must have covered I don't 50 things. It was like mind-boggling. I because what happened is we had certain things we wanted to talk about. We just threw it out, the script out because it was so cool, and we had no idea how to respond. And he bring up stuff, and we go, oh wow, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
But one thing before we move on is that Joe said, look, you depending on what position, sometimes you just take a blind stab in the dark. You just okay, they could have signed. Look, Devin White, as you brought up with him, didn't work, right? They could have signed three guys and maybe one would hit.
Hmm.
But honestly, the contract told you 1 year, 3.5 million fully guaranteed. They didn't think much of him.
Right.
No
Right.
one did. I mean, that's the greatness of this.
Of course. So
Really
we'll see.
cool
We'll see
story.
what kind of action. I think if it's going to happen, if they're going to bring back Zach Bowen, I think they have to
Do it early,
agree
right?
to an extension with him before free agency. I don't think you can allow this guy to get to the end of the year, go
Yeah.
test the free agent waters, have any team offer him anywhere between 10 to 12, whatever you make, and then all of a sudden, you know the Eagles aren't going to pay top market, and even Joe said that. But if you can get both sides to meet in the middle somewhere, to me, that would have to happen probably before the end of the season, or maybe right before the start of free agency, like around the combine time. You can't let him go
Well,
in free agency.
honestly, they won't wait till then. They'll try to get it done before the end of this season. If
I agree.
he, with an asterisk, if he continues to play at the level, I asked Greg, I think it was on Patreon. I said, "Hey, he broke him down for 5 minutes." I said, "Hey, just summarize where he's at." And he goes, "He's borderline dominant." I'm like, "Did you just say borderline dominant Zach Bond?" I was just like, "Wow, that tells you that encapsulates how great he's been." Really, honestly, he's been their best defensive player.
Yeah, and that's a dance that you're talking about now. If the Eagles want to wait until week 15 or week 14,
If this
and Zach
continues,
Bowen's tape is really good and gets better. I
don't
mean, listen,
wait.
he's not Fred Warner as Greg Close, so
Yeah,
we're not making him that to be. But the point is, I don't know who his agent is offhand. I can't remember.
good
But
CAA. Yeah.
yeah, if you get to week 14 or 15, all you got to do is tell Zach, you can just play good for a few more weeks in the playoffs and you're going to get a top market linebacker deal. You may not want. So there's a whole lot of dancing going on there that we've seen
I get
happen
it.
with all organizations.
It's a
So,
great story, but we'll move on in a minute. But we went over a lot of stuff with Joe. I mean, we went over so many players' philosophies, both the coordinators, the coaching staff, as we said, Sirianni, and what I'll try to do is I'm going to ask him if he would be willing to come back for the playoffs. We all agreed. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, just if you sign up for Patreon soon and you hear this interview, don't be taken aback when he said he has mostly positive comments. Some are very critical, somewhat critical.
Somewhat,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, like, but he explains why.
Mhm.
He's very analytical. One of the things that Joe became, and particularly when I work with him at ESPN, I did not know he was such a film guy. He watches so much tape, and he's learned the game,
Mhm.
over decades. So for people who call him a numbers guy and a money guy, okay, a lot of that's true, but he became a film guy, and I give him credit. I was very skeptical before we worked together at ESPN. I didn't know him that well, and then we had thousands of conversations, and boy, he would be right a majority of the time. The only time he and I really we didn't get like we didn't yell at each other, but I told him that there was no way the Eagles would make the playoffs in 16.
Mhm.
He loved their roster in 16. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't understand that at all, but
But he got it right because they won the Super Bowl next year.
I guess he was sort of right, but I
Yeah,
mean,
we both were right. We both were
they
right. Yeah,
added to make, they had to get Alshon
yeah,
Jeffrey and Tim Jernigan and
sure,
Chris Long,
sure,
and it's
sure.
not like that
I know,
2016 roster, which started
but
Dorial
yeah,
Green Beckham and
I know.
Moss
Right, that's right,
Magnar.
right. I'm
I
like,
mean, come
there's
on.
no, but I told him there's zero chance to make the playoffs with this roster. They were 7-9, although internally then they thought they were better than the record would indicate, and they were probably right. But it is what it is. But we move on. But I loved it, man. I'm so glad we got him on.
Yeah, it was really good stuff. You also had really interesting things to say about the Eagles salary cap situation, which
Ooh,
not normally something that he's ever concerned with, or most people, because the Eagles always quote
well,
unquote figure out a way. But he had a really interesting, I don't want to call it a theory. I mean, it's facts. He had some interesting
true.
facts
I
about
gotta
it
look this up.
that
Yeah,
made me look at it in a different light, down the future.
yeah.
All right, so that was the Joe Banner stuff, Adam. Let's talk about the injury report from the Eagles here. Got
It
a
is
lot
long.
better after Wednesday was a little scary.
Yeah.
Seemed to get better, but I tried to emphasize this on social media. Wednesday was an estimation of a workout because they held a walkthrough, which I think was a really smart idea by Nick Sirianni. One, because of all the injuries they were already nursing coming out of the game, and two, you're about to play two games in a 5 day stretch, two division games that are very critical. So I thought, we were critical of them earlier in the year when they were not playing well and missing tackles about having these non-padded practices or walkthroughs on Wednesday, and then he started to have more real practices. But I cannot criticize them for going through a walkthrough this Wednesday.
Yeah, you have to do it late in it's week 10. Absolutely. In fact, it as it wound up, there were no, this is the most we've seen of injuries that were not listed in game, but when they came in on Monday for treatment, we got pop-up injuries. So we're going to go through this. There are a lot of them, but as you said, there was better news late in the week. They're not all givens though. We'll explain this. So AJ Brown, good thing is he took all the starter reps on Thursday. Barring a setback, he'll be in the lineup. Now we got to see what happens today. It's not a lock with this knee. We're not exactly sure what it is. We've heard conflicting stuff, so we can't really go with it. But we know that he's got a knee injury, and thankfully the testing was good on his knee, and he was able to get out there on Thursday and take his normal reps. So that's a great thing. Now we don't know how many reps he gets per each practice. I know from talking to the Titans, let's say his normal practice reps were 15 out of the 30, and he would take the 15 that he was prescribed to take. That would mean a full practice. So, talking to the Titans for years about AJ, they would say, look, like he wouldn't practice very much. That way they got him to Sunday. Now he's not having that problem here
Hmm.
in terms of showing up on the injury report a lot, but he is here with his knee thing. Thankfully, it gave everybody a scare. Right now, it's looking good. Got to get through to today's practice, but looking good. The big pop-up one was Devontae Smith with the hamstring.
Yeah.
He did get some work on Thursday. Let's see what he does today. If he takes all his reps, he'll certainly be in the lineup, barring a setback. Got to see what happens today. Another one that came out of the game, Fred Johnson with a knee. Limited on Thursday. Got to see what happens today, but it's good that he's out there. It's a positive sign. Mekhi Becton off the concussions off the injury report. But the new one is the ankle. He took all of his reps on Thursday. He will be in the lineup, barring a setback.
Hmm.
Cam Jurgens, new injury as well. These are all new, by the way, that we're mentioned coming out of the game. Cam Jurgens, wrist injury, took all the ones on Thursday, barring a setback. He will be in the lineup. Josh Sweat took his normal reps on Thursday, barring a setback. He'll be in the lineup. Bryce Huff should get clear to play. He took plenty of practice in on Thursday. Now, the question is if he plays, assuming he should, how much is he going to play? Who the hell knows at this point with his role? And then this is another pop-up. Nolan Smith with a groin injury. I got to see. He was limited on Thursday. Got to see what happens today.
Hmm.
Van Surman, I'm seeing this, by the way. A lot of players been, not a lot, some players have been playing the week after a concussion. I track all this stuff,
Hmm.
but there's been a number of them that have not been sidelined by a concussion the next week. So here's the good thing: Ben Van Sumeren he's progressing through the protocol. He started working on Thursday. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
think that that's a really good sign for Van Summeren.
yeah,
Obviously, this is part of the protocol to get back on the
yep,
field in a limited manner, but yeah, that's pretty good because, as you said, some guys are making it, but more often than not, guys are taking having to get through that extra week to get back on.
yeah, it's a high percentage don't play, but this is a good sign.
Right.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr., another one who really doesn't contribute other than special teams with a hip, though we're told doing well behind the scenes. All right, here's the two big ones. This is great. One we were expecting, one we weren't sure, but so we have better information. So these are two that were carried over from last week. Dallas Goedert. The reason why they didn't put him on IR is because they thought he had a chance to come back within the 4 games. They were right. They were right. He took all the ones on Wednesday, not Thursday, not Wednesday, Thursday. So as long as he doesn't come in today and it's very sore and gets through practice today, he's playing. He
Yep.
just has to get through practice. So cross your fingers. I know people had him in fantasy. I keep being asked by people on Twitter about this. I have him in a couple leagues, and I'm been so frustrated with for fantasy purposes for years. You never know what you're going to get from him.
Yeah, he's a volatile fantasy play,
Well, it's
even
because
when
of
things are
Jalen.
going well.
Yeah, him and Jalen just because Jalen's not an over the middle thrower. But
Right.
yet with Calcaterra, technically some of them are inside the numbers, not in the middle, but inside the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, some of them should be inside the numbers, but then he hits them a little bit later outside the numbers.
Yeah,
So,
I know he's late on
yeah.
some, but he gets it there. His accuracy is
Yeah,
better.
but it's the same thing though. Calcaterra, we're talking like it's a good game for if he's 3 for 35, but that's
Yeah.
not a good game for Dallas Goedert from a
No,
fantasy
and
standpoint.
that someone said something I forget on it was probably our YouTube comments, and I favorited it. I was laughing my ass off.
What did he say?
It was something. It was actually prior to the game to New Orleans when he went off. He goes here. I guess we were talking. I don't know. Maybe you put the headline up about Goddard for that particular show. And he goes, "Dude, you guys are blowing him up. You know he's going to do 4 for 47 like usual." And I'm like, of course, I favored. I thought the guy. It just made me laugh because that's what
Funny.
typically happens. But anyway, and then here's the other big one. Cross your fingers. Slate took all the ones on Thursday. We'll
Yeah,
see. Don't
yeah,
have a setback, man. This would be good. So let's see what happens today. But right now he's trending towards playing. Looking
yeah.
good.
So the defense would be at full strength if Darius Slay plays. That means all starters are good to
Should
go.
be all of them. Yep,
That's
should
what
be.
I'm saying. If he play,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we'll see again what's going on with the rush, the pass rush with Nolan Smith being
Yeah.
limited on Thursday and Bryce Huff. We'll see. The only concern is sort of Devontae Smith and can he get today is a huge day for the offense. Can Devontae Smith get out and practice in full? And can Fred Johnson get out and practice in full? I'm not as much worried. I don't think you are either about Becton because we know Tyler Steen has played really well at right guard. But if you're down to left tackle number 3 against Micah Parsons, who's rearing to come back, that's not great. That's just not good. And then of course, if you
Yeah.
don't also have Devontae Smith, who's been playing lights out the last few weeks, it's not great. So today's a big day.
Yeah, and Joe Banner had some great comments on Tyler Steen and Mekhi Becton. We asked him, and he's seen tape of both. Really interesting.
Yeah, that blew me away as well.
It's one thing for Cosell because Greg sees like 300 players a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the hell did he broke him down? I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah. And listen,
Almost.
Joe's not only watching tape, right? We know he's involved with a lot of guys from the NFL and
Yep.
he's constantly talking to people. We got his
He does.
opinion on how others are viewing Nick
Mm-hmm.
Sirianni, the Eagles, the Barkley signing, all that too. So yeah, he's in the loop there.
Yeah, because he'll go, well, this team said this about their players. Like he'll tell me that too. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. All right, so removed from the injury report, guys who were on it last week are no longer on it. Landon Dickerson with his knee issue, and Jalen Carter. This is important with the shoulder. It's not. It doesn't mean it isn't sore, but he's not on the injury report this week, so that's a good thing.
All right. So that's basically the injury situation for the Eagles. And a reminder that our injury report is sponsored by our friends at Stretch Zone. If you go into Stretch Zone, you'll get 10% off your first month of membership just by mentioning Inside the Birds. That's right, 10% off just by mentioning Inside the Birds on your membership, your first month of membership at Stretch Zone.
By the way, your first stretch is free. You go in, you could sign up at stretchzones.com, pick whatever time you want. They're generally open 7 a.m. to 8 p. They're in Chester County, Haverford. Say hello to my man Jared. He spells it Gerard, but he pronounces it Jared. Jared's a practitioner. He stretched me before. In Devon, which is next to the Whole Foods. Exton, Austin, who's phenomenal. Emily, who's great. Madison is great, and Hassan. South Philly, Washington Ave. Montgomery County, Elkins Park, where I grew up, and the right up next to the Elkins, the plaza there, Elkins Park Plaza. Upper Dublin on 611, Feasterville, New Jersey, where you are, Cherry Hill, Mount Laurel. We got to get Cosell in.
Oh
Greg's
yeah, he'll get
working
in
out.
there.
Greg dropping that knowledge that he went on a 4.8 in the 40. You know what?
By the way, a couple of the YouTube commenters doubted that.
It's actually, here's the thing,
I
and
believe
and
he
I
was a
could.
great athlete.
He was an all city, and was it Brooklyn? Is he from? Is it Brooklyn?
Queens,
Queens.
Queens,
Okay, Queens. All city
shortstop.
shortstop
Mm-hmm.
and hoops player. In his office at NFL Films. If you're watching on YouTube, his jump shot, you're seeing it, is perfectly formed, and it goes like this, like you got to see it. Now the
Mm-hmm.
funny thing is he's wearing the shorts, like the
Well, I
Daisy
mean, I
Dukes.
think people would expect that.
Yeah, yeah, he was wearing the Daisy Dukes before there were Daisy Dukes. Okay,
Yeah.
we're giving nobody.
I mean, the guy was playing against Ernie Grunfeld, so you know it's been
Yeah,
a while.
the former Knicks
Yeah, yeah,
the former
yeah,
Knicks GM, and who
yeah.
was a
But
phenomenal basketball player at Tennessee with Bernard King.
right, I don't know
Um,
if people realize it just from watching the shows, but Greg is not a small individual.
no,
He
he's
is
six
a
four.
big dude. Yeah, like
Well,
you
he
can tell he was
was,
an
but
athlete.
what's happened is older men get up there in age, they shrink a
Yeah.
little bit. But he might be 6'2" now. But anyway,
Still bigger than
so
me.
yeah, I'm 6 foot 1/2 inch. But so in New Jersey with Stretch Zone, they're in Cherry Hill, Mount
Yep,
Laurel, your NFL Films, Franklin Lakes, Northfield, and Princeton. So real quick before we move on, you were there this week.
I was.
What'd you get done, and did you run this week and test it out?
I did, and it was such a difference. Remember, I haven't been able to run. I'm just starting to get back into running after a couple months off from an ailment or an injury or something that we were trying to figure out. And they have been really helpful in catering the stretching routine to what I need stretched out. My legs need more stretching than anything because my calves are very stiff, my quads, my lower back, and Lexi started me up, and then Mike this week with really just getting me feeling good, feeling loose, so that when I ran this last time after my stretch, I could tell I was able. I actually shaved a few seconds off already from the time before that because I'm a little rusty from not running so much. So they do an excellent job. They ask you how you're feeling. They get you on three different as you know, they get you on three different levels. We're going to stretch you here. All right. Then we're going to stretch it a little further. All right, and then third level and by the time you're done, I don't know if you can, I'm sure most people can relate. That feeling you get after you stretch where it feels well, what happens is physiologically your body releases forget what it is. Mike was explaining it to me. Your body's releasing something while you're stretching to kind of lather up your muscles. And that's a great feeling. That's why people wake up in the morning, they're stiff and they stretch out and they feel better. Well, imagine just doing that for a half hour to all the areas of your body that need it, that are really stiff. So it was a great, great feeling, and can't wait to go back next week.
Yeah, I cannot. One thing, I cannot believe you got your quads done. That is I got to find out what exactly you got done. I got to look into this.
What am I? Am I doing something ahead of schedule, or am
Crazy! It took me a year to get my quads done because I
I am
get
younger than
sevens.
you, my friend. So
I
maybe
know, but I'm probably in better physical shape than you are. But
let's see. You're a tennis player. I'm a runner. That's a really good question. You might be. I don't know. I don't know how to measure it.
dude, I play 4 to 5 days a week. I can go 3 hours if I needed to, which is
Yeah.
hard to run.
Right.
But to give you an example, right? This on Thursday, I did an hour and a half. I felt like I could have played because I go right before so folks, if you go in a stretch zone, right? And I would highly recommend if you play golf or tennis, pickleball, play hoops, anything athletic, get your stretch right before you play if you can, if you could work that out. Because I was like, I was so loose on Thursday.
Great
But
feeling.
what's that?
Yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
good feeling, an
The,
underrated feeling to be
it
that low.
is. It's so great because I remember the first time I talked about that. The first time I had my stretch, my 3-year anniversary will be in December. I could not before I got stretched that for my first time. I couldn't reach down on my right.
Mm,
And it was a mental thing with me. I just wouldn't do it. There's something going on in my brain that tells me not to do it. But once I got to stretch and I was so loose, I just felt like I was picking up a piece of paper on the ground. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I can never do that. So
no
anyway,
doubt. And
stretchzone.com.
someday I'm going to be able to touch my toes, apparently. That's the
You
goal that
will.
they have for me. So
Yep,
I look forward to that.
you got it.
All right. Cowboys, they've got some injuries. I think we made this joke about being out overstretched. Obviously, Dak Prescott is not going to play. He is out with a hamstring injury. Adam, have they placed him yet at the time of us doing this on IR, or
No,
is he okay? That's
he's
kind of
not playing, and he's going to miss 4 games. And here's the thing with hamstrings. I could tell you from firsthand knowledge. First of all, you got to hydrate. Okay, it's another thing you got to do with hand. You will have hamstring strains. I've learned it the hard way before I learned how to hydrate and stretch. I get stretch at stretch zone, but I also on my own I do what's called a dynamic stretch. Like if I'm playing at 6:30 a.m., I
hmm
get up at 5:30 or 5:15. I do high knees like this, and I'm literally the night before though I got to go to the bathroom a little bit. If you drink a lot of water the night before, but I'm like if I'm today is Friday, if I'm playing Saturday
hmm
by noon or 1 o'clock, I'm starting to drink water to get ready, or
hmm
you're susceptible to getting a hamstring pull. I'm telling you, man. I don't know what happened with Dak, but that's bad, man. For a minimum of 4 games. My man Tyreek Maxey, he's out for I don't know how many weeks with this hamstring problem. And the higher up it is in your hamstring, just so you know, the worse it is. That's the bigger grade. The three
hmm
hamstring strain grades. One's mild. Moderate is grade 2. Grade 3 is the worst. Grade 3 is like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
We're gonna have an injury expert on. We've had on before. Um, I want to get Aaron Bergman on, who's great, the former assistant athletic trainer for the Chiefs and Eagles,
hmm
who will walk us through. He did years ago remember Darren Sproles had it. Remember
Yes, I do.
several years ago. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it took
So
a lot longer to get
you
back. I
should.
remember that.
You got
Yeah,
it
as we
right.
say all the time, when you hear the word hamstring strain, it is a tear. It's not a full tear. It's a minor tear, so it does need a proper time because it's one of those injuries that's very, very easy to re-aggravate.
No, it's a tear, but what happens is in a grade 1, you're tearing the fibers,
Right.
stretching the foot. Now, the grade 3 is the worst. That's a full tear. I tore my adductor, which is in the groin area, in a
hmm
very light strain. I stretched it playing tennis, and I just didn't even realize that I need to get that area stretched. So, you know it, once a week I get my adductors stretched. So you gotta be careful with this stuff, man. Okay, so that's hamstring.
hmm
Prescott. Let's get to CeeDee Lamb. He's got a sprained shoulder, right? He's limited. This one's simple. It's flexibility, whether he has to wear a harness. What More often than not, these guys play with this thing,
hmm
sprained shoulder. Now the question is he going to be limited to the game if he gets cleared?
Right.
So and
It's
they made
hard
the
to
trade
not
with
be limited, by the way, when you don't have the range. When you're a contested catch guy, like he can be, and or a high point guy,
Yep.
and you have limited range of motion, that can be difficult.
Right. So that you worry about. Now, Jonathan Mingo, here's the book on Mingo. So the Panthers, I'm told, were trying to move him. This staff got down on him. He's got the guy, the term is body beautiful. He looks like an ex-receiver. He doesn't play like one, never
hmm
applied himself. He needed change of scenery, and Dallas is hoping that, they could bring him along and see what he can do. But so for some reason, if Lamb can't play opposite Jalen Tolbert, because Brandon Cooks still is out, he's got a hamstring issue. He's on IR. No, he's got a knee issue. He had a minor surgery. He's not even practicing yet. It'll be the returner Cavante Turpin, who's pretty talented, or Jalen Brooks. So I was with the Cowboys last year in training camp. He lit it up the day I was there, but he was a seventh round pick, so that severely impacts their offensive. Lamb can't play, and
hmm
then and obviously they'll run 12 personnel with Luke Schoonmaker, but last week they didn't. Schoonmaker only played one snap, and he's not on the injury report. The second round pick out of Michigan last year, so that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, and of course Brandon Cooks is on IR, I
Yep,
believe. So
yeah, he is.
they're
Yep.
hurting, man. They're listen. They got old really quickly. And now they're all beat up. The offensive line hasn't played well, but I mean, you look at this wide receiver group. Now, the one thing I would say is with Cooper Rush starting, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a little bit of a rapport with Turpin because they probably have some symmetry from the sec being on the
Scout team.
second,
Yep.
third team, the scout
Yep.
team.
Yep.
And Turpin has hurt the Eagles in the past because of his speed, but this is a different Eagles secondary that's got a little bit more speed to it a lot than in the past. So we'll see.
And then this is another one. Zach Martin with a shoulder injury. Now, they have a weird deal. Like, believe the Friday practice is actually a walkthrough and they practice Saturday.
Mm,
One of the few teams that does it. That's the old Chip Kelly thing. By
yep.
Sports Science, and the Giants did that with Tom Coughlin, believe it or not. So
All people, right?
I know exactly. You read my mind. You read my body language. So we'll see what about Zach Martin. So if Zach Martin doesn't play, we'll look into. We'll have this by the way. When we do the pregame show, we will follow up. We'll update injuries again and any lineup changes. Micah Parsons, they think he's going to play, but he's not taking all the reps
Hmm.
with coming back from the high ankle. Man, these things when you have a true high ankle, which Micah has, these things don't recover easily. And Carl Lawson's getting reps now. Who, boy, the Jets signed. Remember, he tore his Achilles that like 3 summers ago. He's never the same.
Right.
So he's on the roster. They just don't have any depth because of Tank Lawrence is on IR with a midfoot sprain. They hope he comes back for the end of the regular season. Marshawn Nealon, their second rounder, he had the real meniscus surgery. He's done for the season. They don't have anybody. You just mentioned it. They ran out of players, man. It's not that I'm feeling sorry for the Cowboys. Growing up in this area, I'm not a fan, but I mean, I don't mind it when the Cowboys aren't good. It's just kind of it's just typical Jerry Jones, man.
Yeah.
Just he can't get out of his own way. Not that he has anything to do with the injuries, but they've had depth issues. Their
Well, I was
offensive
going to
line is
say to
not,
your point, yeah, depth. Depth is this is not a deep team. They
no, it's
just
not.
aren't, and
No.
they've been deeper in the past. Dan Quinn went to Washington, took about five Cowboys with him, and
Fun.
because of that, they're not as deep. They don't have Noah Brown anymore.
Nope.
They don't have obviously the center Biadish. They don't have Dorrance Armstrong, who would give them some reps as an edge rusher. And the guys that they tried to replace them with, like Marshawn Nealon, the rookie, he's on IR.
Yeah.
Brooks is on IR. So yeah, depth is this. I don't want to say this is like the 2020 Eagles, but there's some similarity. I mean, the quarterback did not regress the way Carson Wentz just completely went into the tank, but the offensive line in 2020 for the Eagles, that was a big start of it. Remember how hurt they were from the season opener. In the season opener, they had to start Driscoll at right guard and somebody else at right tackle. I forget who it was because Lane Johnson got hurt. So even from the first game, the offensive line was beat up all year. Then they wound up having to play Toth against Baltimore.
Oh,
You
don't
know,
mention that.
I
Don't.
know, but
I,
this
yeah.
feels like that. This feels
Right.
like so many injuries and a roof caving in
Oh,
type of season for the Cowboys.
here's another one for you. Dante Fowler. DQ brought him over to um to Washington with him. That's
Yep.
another guy.
Yeah.
And Sam Williams is out for Sam Williams is on injured reserve who would have contributed to this year's team. So they got a major issue. The head coach is working. When do you see a head coach work not get a new deal? But
Yeah. I think there's going to be major changes for that organization after the year, but we'll see. But
it's
that's why
not
I said
working.
this. It definitely feels like a roof caving in type of stretch here for the Cowboys, and I just don't know how they get right, especially with Dak now being shelved. And Cooper Rush has not started a game since 2022 season when he played against the Eagles, right? So it's not like he's real warm and get right in there and you're good to go. I mean, he just hasn't played, so this thing could get ugly.
Well, that's why the Eagles were, what, a 7.5 point favorite on the road. And then also Trayvon Diggs, I expect him to play. He didn't even practice last week and played with a calf strain, which means it was a grade one. And Deron Bland won't play. In fact, the only reason why he was activated off IR, had they not activated him last week, he couldn't play this year.
Mhm.
So he's just not practicing. He's coming back from a broken foot. Man, they have a lot of bad luck, a lot of major injuries. I'm not sure what their issue is, man. They got a lot of bad luck.
I think that's just it.
Trainers, I don't know what it is.
Injuries and bad luck. That usually is the toxic combination there.
Yes,
So
man.
yeah. All right. We'll move on and talk about a few other things. Before we move on, Adam, of course, we've been talking about all the great sports going on right now. You got the NHL, the NBA, college basketball, college football, NFL games. I mean, the world is a sports fan's oyster right now. You can go to anything, and if you're getting tickets, you got to use the Game Time app because they have a function called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The best part of Game Time is their super deal, which shows you the best value for the area or the row in the arena. And they have other great tiers of deals as well. It is such a wonderful user-friendly experience using the Game Time app because you can also use it for concert tickets. And Game Time Picks works with that as well also. And remember, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and that includes event cancellation protection and job loss protection. Of course, they have the lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if they aren't the lowest price. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets using Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Adam. A couple of, I guess, minor transactions for the Eagles to discuss. Although I guess I'm a little bit surprised. And Will Greer was on the practice squad. They released him, and then they signed Teron Jackson, who comes back to the team, the outside
Again.
linebacker, the other guy again. Yeah, familiarity. So I guess what I wonder is, I'm not sure I understood why Will Greer was on the team as a fourth quarterback for this long anyway. But then I thought once he made it past 8 or 9 weeks, I figured he was just going to be on the practice squad all year because
Well,
he's Kellen Moore's guy. And listen,
yeah,
he might come back.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know, but
Yeah. He listen, he's an assistant coach basically. He's the guy who helped the quarterbacks in training camp and the OTAs to learn the scheme, terminology, everything the way that Kellen coaches, the way he calls plays and so forth. Honestly, he should have been an assistant coach. He'll never play.
right.
You know what I mean? He should just be assistant coach. Maybe he'll do that because most people think he'll be a coach anyway. So yeah. So Teron Jackson's back. He's a guy who if he ever gets on the 53 will only play on special teams. And it's a guy they know. That's pretty much he was with the Giants practice squad
Hmm.
um, earlier. So we'll see what happens with him here. But bottom line is you look at this situation with their practice squad. It's interesting some of the names that are on here still. Danny Gray's not been brought off. Kyle Phillips has not been brought off of it. I'm going really. EJ Jenkins is out of elevations, so we have to see what they do. CJ Uzama's back. You mentioned Brett Toth. Yep, yep. Brett Toth is back again. Gabe Hall, who Sirianni mentioned weeks ago, who won a sort of like a practice player of the week, practice squad player of the week. Paris Campbell, remember they cut him
Hmm.
and then brought him back to the practice squad. Ty Davis Price, a former 49er. You always have to have that. Your guy, Castro Fields, the corner, former 49er and Penn State player.
My guy.
Yeah, had a Penn Stater. That's it. And Andre Sam, who had a nice training camp. He wasn't going to make it, but they're going to take a look at him. Oh, one more thing before we move on. Haven't heard anything new on James Bradbury. A couple of people asked me on Twitter, and I
Forgot about
have
that.
not. We just have not heard anything. And Britton Covey's not practicing yet. For those who are wondering, that's what
How
that
does
is.
it work with Bradbury? He started the year on injured reserve, correct?
Yes, yes. In fact, they put him on that he'd be able to play this year. That you have to designate them when you put him on IR that at that point.
Right.
So they think he'll be able to return, but he had a couple of things going on. No, these weren't fake. People were like, "Oh, see, they don't want to eat the third whatever the hell it was, 13
Right.
million."
So
You know,
you have to miss 4 games, but you can miss more than that until you're
yes.
activated into the 21 day wait. Is there any time limit where they would have to make a decision on if he's going
Good
to play
question.
this year or not?
I'll
The
look,
the
but
rules are so funky.
well, it's they made it a rule adjustment with
Yeah,
this one. You have to decide whether the guy could come back for the year or not. But
right.
there is no, but I don't know if there's okay, if he doesn't come back by week 12, can he come back? I don't know because I know that they've readjusted these rules They readjusted the PUP rule from 6 weeks to four, which thank God they did that because teams would be like, God, our guy's ready after 4 weeks. Do we have to wait 2 more weeks? So,
Right.
so the clubs got their wish. The trade deadline was moved up 2 weeks over the years. So good for the league. We know we've talked about the practice squad now 16. It used to be like six many years ago. The elevations, which they didn't have until COVID. I mean, thankfully these things are all working out for the clubs because guys, it's all about getting guys jobs. That's the good thing. So I'm glad that they're doing this.
All right, one last thing on Eagles Cowboys before we end this. Let's first pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. You will get great customer service. It will be the best car buying experience that you can have in 2024 and beyond because honestly, there are no good car buying experiences, and they are a great experience to begin with. So it is the combination of the frustration people have in trying to buy cars, and then you come to this place and it's like utopia because Brett Shoulder and his crew will absolutely help you. They will steer you in the right direction. There are wonderful people there, and we appreciate them.
SkyMotorCars.com. And also, you can follow them on IG. You got to see the pictures, man. It's really cool.
A lot of great inventory,
Yep.
which is a big issue other places. All right, Adam, what would be the one reason somebody asked me this? So I'll throw it to you. Because sometimes we see matchups that just look like layups here. What would be the one reason the Eagles couldn't win this game, in your opinion?
Well, I remember talking to a former Vikings defensive coach many years ago, and they faced Cooper Rush, and Rush played his ass off against them.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I remember that is because you just never know. Let's say the Eagles don't have a great pass rush to begin with. Their defense overall is playing lights out, but they don't have a great pass rush. Well, let's say they can't get to Cooper Rush. Lamb plays. You mentioned Kavontae Turpin. What if he has a big play? The running backs are so bad. The running game. Jerry Jones, what is he thinking with his running back group? It's embarrassing. But let's just say that Cooper Rush gets protected. He has a decent arm, and Jake Ferguson, who I like at tight end, makes a couple plays, and who's had some games against the Eagles. Let's say everything works against them. They get good protection, and they can't get to him. They put up 24 points. Well, that would be a problem. Now, the Cowboys defense has been ass lately. It's been terrible.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're terrible out home. I put the stat out on Twitter, like, I don't know, 5 weeks ago.
Right.
They got an amazing amount of attention. Last 4 home games going back to the playoffs, 167 points.
Yeah, I mean, like when you factor all this in, they've been awful in run defense all year. The Eagles have a very good rushing offense. They've been awful in pass defense. Well, the Eagles have been using explosive plays all over the place, right? The Cowboys can't run the ball. So even though the Eagles had been vulnerable earlier in the year against running defense, and sometimes they still can be a little loose, well, you don't expect that from the Cowboys running game. And if CeeDee Lamb is banged up or can't play, who in the world is Cooper Rush throwing the ball to? I hate these matchups because and we'll talk about it with Greg Cosell on the pregame show. It'll be out early Sunday morning. When you analyze it from a X's and O's standpoint, there is not one single advantage. Not even home field, because the Cowboys stink at home.
Terrible at home.
Terrible. There's not one single advantage. And it would make you think the Eagles should come out of here with like a 41-3 type of win. But it never happens that way.
I know.
I mean, I suppose Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer, they could be in the lab this week. They could be like trying to figure it out. Maybe they coach their asses off. But if you just look at it from a matchup standpoint, it's almost impossible to see how the Cowboys even keep this close.
Because the Eagles had some bad losses at Dallas in that losing streak, but
turnovers, man, that would be the one thing. If the Eagles just
that too,
no clear recovery, because everybody remembers that, right? Like you fumble a kickoff.
Oh, ridiculous! Oh, yeah. Wow, good call. Wow, I totally forgot about that. But think about it this way, right? So when the Saints were actually looked like the world beaters, the Saints went into Big Ding, smoked them 44-19, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next week, Dallas lost a tough game at home against the Ravens. Then their next home game, this is one of the all-time embarrassments. The Lions just pants them 47-9.
Depants.
Here's the funny thing is the Lions are playing. I remember watching, I wanted to watch a coaching tape to see what the hell was wrong with Dallas's offense. Detroit's playing dime defense and they couldn't score. Ridiculous.
Detroit just emptied the entire bag on Dallas. It's like revenge for the year before when the referee took away the touchdown because they were just pulling out trick play after trick play and extra offensive lineman, extra guy in here. I mean, they almost treated that game like the Super Bowl. Well, at least you thought that, and then they've won and dismantled a couple of other teams since that game. So the Lions look really tough right now.
And the first of that 4-game losing streak was the playoff game against Green Bay. Green Bay scored 48 points. They were up 27-0 at one point.
Yeah.
They suck at home. I don't care how bad you are at home. You can't give up 41.5 points per game at home, or 42, whatever the hell it is. You can't do that. God.
All right, we're gonna somehow figure out a way to get through all the X's and O's with Greg Cosell. It's gonna be a great pregame show because I'm gonna try in this pregame show on Sunday to really make a case for Dallas being able to do one thing well. I don't know what that one thing is. I'm just gonna say what's the one thing that Dallas can do well. And by the way, usually their offensive line you could say has been a strong point. It's been bad this year. Even Zach Martin, who is dealing with the injury that we talked about, has not been good. When Zach Martin's not good, you know you got issues going on the front because he's been one of the best offensive linemen in the league.
In the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So that is it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.